Today, George is away in the Netherlands scouting out potential competition next season in the Conference League. So today I'm joined by lifelong villain, lifelong friend of mine as well, and the season ticket holder, Richard Stevens. Rich, welcome back to All Villa, No Filler.
Thanks very much, Fran. Yeah, what an evening to be here. Villa in Europe. Unbelievable scenes.
It's just, what is going on in the world? What's happening? So you were at the game today.
Yeah.
Firstly, something I want to know is, could you feel before the game that there was a buzz, there was an atmosphere, that something's going on at Aston Villa right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think without getting too sort of down a rabbit hole, but we went half an hour before we normally would to try and get our usual parking space, and it was still almost full. You know, we were there, we parked 2.5 hours before kickoff, and everywhere was packed. We got behind they do that fan zone bit behind the Trinity Road. That was absolutely rammed for 2 hours, an hour and a half, completely packed with people.
Wow.
And there was just a general excitement. I think naturally always with a little bit of nervousness about, this could all still not happen. But I think people were positively and fairly confidently hoping that it would all work out, and it did. And I think the atmosphere at the beginning was absolutely brilliant, and when we got those 2 goals, you sort of felt it was one of those days, and it was just really good. He did get a bit nervous, I think, in the second half, but who cares in the end? When the players needed to be carried at the end, I think that really came in. The last 5 or 10 minutes in injury time was a brilliant atmosphere where people sort of realised, okay, let's just get this done now. It was excellent. It was also quite funny with the Brighton fans. I mean, again, not particularly relevant, but because obviously they didn't really have anything to play for, and there was I think that contributed to the atmosphere, that there wasn't really any hostility between the fans. Brighton were perfectly happy that they'd already qualified, and they were, a big chunk of Brighton fans stayed behind to join in the Villa sort of celebrations at the end of the game. So it was just a great atmosphere. It was very positive, very excited. And just an incredible way to end the season. I remember when we spoke when Unai came in, and we were sort of saying, "Oh, if we don't get relegated, that would be great." And that seems ludicrously naive now that was the limit of our aspirations. But it was just amazing.
It's incredible because considering, I've been saying since Emery came in that if we can just even finish top half, mate, because when you looked at it, you looked at Brentford, Fulham, Tottenham, all these clubs that looked so far ahead of us. You were like, there's no way we're catching. Maybe we'll catch one if they fall out of form.
Yeah.
But for Villa to finish top half would be a great stepping stone, and maybe we can push for Europe next season. So not just finish top half.
Yeah.
To actually make Europe, to finish above Tottenham, Brentford and Fulham, and to also just, I don't know, just look like a team that just knows what the hell it's doing now. It's just absolutely unbelievable to see.
It really is remarkable. And not for a second trying to take anything away from Brighton, but we only finished 1 point behind Brighton, and everyone was really been talking about how incredible Brighton are and how they've what a breath of fresh air. And we caught Brighton with really 2/3 of a season. A third of our season was sort of wasted in the Gerrard era. So it is incredible. And the number of points, it was funny that we had that period where it felt like we were in 11th for 8 weeks. We were sort of winning every week, but we were always 11th. And I think we built, that was when we were closing the gap to those teams above us. And I think that really helped us as well, because we haven't been hyped at all. Let's say in the last 4 weeks, suddenly in the classic media way, people have noticed, oh, wow, Villa are really flying now. Of course they don't cover every club all the time, but I think that period where we were able to just chip away at what was a massive points difference, we were about 15 points behind Tottenham, 20 points even at some point, and that was amazing. So I think we were helped. We also have to probably be a little bit realistic that Chelsea and Tottenham having pretty poor seasons helped us a lot. Had they had more of their standard points totals, I think it would have been quite challenging for us to catch them, but they didn't, and we took absolutely full advantage of that, which is which is just fantastic. I'm now looking forward to some truly random, Conference League opponent.
Kazakhstan, who are you? Who are you? Kazakhstan, here we come.
Yeah, because you sort of forget that. Everyone's sort of, because the last time, what was it, 13 years ago, whatever it was?
Yeah, Rapid Vienna.
We were used to the likes of Ajax and HSV Hamburg and this sort of stuff. I think it's going to be a bit of a shock when we see who's in our group, but that's great. Yeah. The whole fun of it.
And that's the thing, I think, because we've been through the ringer as fans, I think, for the last 15 years. I think just the concept of playing in Europe and whoever it is, where they are, it could be in Scandinavia or Eastern Europe or Spain, Italy, Albania, wherever. I think just the feeling of it, a feeling like, right, this is the statement now, isn't it? That Aston Villa are a team that plays in Europe. Yeah, I think that's the key, really, because we've just, we totally lost the way as a club. Since the day Martin O'Neill walked out the door, it's been a long, long way back, really, to get back to where we are now. And there's been so many people who played such a big part of that. Jack Grealish, Dean Smith, the owners when they came in, Christian Perzo coming in with them, the players, and now specifically Unai Emery. I mean, honestly, like with Unai Emery, what do you make of this guy? Like, what have you made of it since he's come in?
Yeah, completely completely just. I think one of the times we spoke, you asked me if he was the best Villa manager I've seen, and it was difficult to really make a true assessment. It probably still is to a sense, but he's certainly very close to that, if not already achieved it. Just the way we were talking about this coming home. He's so energetic, and he's so invested and involved that everyone just gets on board with that, whether that's the players, whether that's his coaching staff, whether that's the crowd. Like, he doesn't do any of the sort of cheesy manager stuff like clapping the fans. He doesn't do any of that. He's just completely in the zone of the game. Yeah. But that energy is so infectious. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed as well, Fran, when you've been. He's absolutely like 100% invested in what's going on, and that has such an infectious effect on everyone.
Yeah,
but Villa. Sorry, the last thing I'll say, then you can absolutely comment, is Villa look truly well drilled. Absolutely. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone has a plan. You don't get the sense of some player coming off the bench and not really sure what their role is or what they're supposed to be doing. It's like the basic he expects is exactly what you're doing, and he's got a plan for you, and you do that. No negotiation. And it's just remarkable to watch that.
And every single game, it feels like Emery has a plan. It feels like he's watched this opposition team. He's watched every single game they've played for the last 10 weeks. Yeah. And multiple times. His family are probably looking around thinking, where the hell is he? Yeah. Is he sat in the gaming room playing Legend of Zelda? He ain't playing Legend of Zelda. He's watching bloody, Brighton and figuring out ways to expose their weaknesses. Yeah. Liverpool last week, Liverpool won 7 in a row. We turned up, and the way he structured it was that McGinn playing as the second striker was a masterstroke, because Trent Alexander-Arnold coming into midfield, and McGinn's there to effectively play almost as a defender from the front, and Watkins doing the same with Fabinho. And so you just kind of feel like he's somebody who works out ways to negate the opposition, but at the same time make the most out of the players that he has. It's just remarkable to see, really. And you compare it to the Gerrard era, where I just cannot imagine Steven Gerrard sitting around watching videos of Brighton all week. I just can't see it. I just think he turns up thinking he's Billy Big Bollocks, he's Alex Ferguson, and he's gonna get his coaches to do all the work, and he'll turn up and be like, everybody, you need to look me in the eye, you need to get a result here tonight. It's not how it works, is it? Emery is a coach who I just feel like he works so hard, and you see that in the way the players play. And it's not just that he works so hard, but it's that he can translate what he wants. He clearly has a high, I call it like an EQ, emotional quotient, whatever, that he can sort of get all of these players believing, like really wanting to perform, because there's not a single player that I can think of really, other than maybe one or two, who haven't gone up levels really since he joined, to be honest.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's what's also been really, really exciting, is how he's been able to reinvigorate some players who were struggling. the three obvious candidates form the spine through our team now, which is Tyrone Mings, John McGinn in midfield, and then Ollie Watkins up front. And they are just transformed. John McGinn was brilliant again today.
He was.
And Ollie Watkins still, Ollie does have his quiet patches, but he's still scored 15 goals in the Premier League. Yeah. That's it's a pretty decent return.
Got the crucial goal today as well.
Exactly, and Mings is consistently incredibly solid. So that's what's so great, that he's been able to just rebuild players. Rebuild is a bit strong, but you know what I mean. Take players who were low on confidence and. You did start to wonder, was that, a couple of seasons from John McGinn, and has he been found out? Same with Ollie Watkins. And no, they just needed a different approach. They needed someone to invest the time in them and work with them. And as you say, I imagine he's probably not a great bloke to chat to, because all he wants to talk about probably is tactics and
a night out in Wetherspoon, Solihull with Emery.
Yeah, I'm sure his wife, has very thick skin, just dealing with this endless discussions about Brighton's formation and stuff like that. So, but that's not our problem. We thank you very much, Mrs. Emery, because we get to benefit from this obsession he has with doing this. And genuinely really looking. Sometimes at the end of the season, I think, okay, that's enough. Let's just forget about football for a bit. Watch some cricket, do whatever, go on holiday, do whatever you like. Let's not immediately think of the next season. But this year, I quite fancy it to start next week. Genuinely, I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens.
Same.
And there's a whole new set of challenges next year. Everyone will know what Emery's about. If they don't already, we'll have to actually use our squad a bit more. That's the only thing that makes me a bit nervous, is we've played very few games in comparison to all of the other teams above us. We in Villa style, skillfully got ourselves knocked out of the cup competitions very quickly. We absolutely didn't. There was no way that we were going to have any European football this year to worry about. So we just had the league, and we were able to use a relatively small number of players very frequently. And I think that would be the only bit, and I trust them absolutely. This isn't me trying to be negative or nervous, but we won't be able to just use that core of 14 or 15 players playing away, as you said, in Albania on a Thursday night, and then suddenly you're away at Man City on a Sunday. That's a bit more of a challenge.
That's where you hope a couple of the youth players might step up, make big investments. And they've had a couple of good loans this season. I think Aaron Ramsey, Cameron Archer, Timo Robenham. Hopefully, a couple of them will come back next season and maybe can fit into those European ties a way that you think Villa can probably get the job done with, not the full first team, but you don't. But again, you don't want to overthink that, because he paid the price when O'Neill sent out the scratch teams to Moscow, didn't he?
Exactly.
But thinking of the Brighton game today, something I thought was how, with Aston Villa, under Emery, one thing I've thought is how Villa just get the job done in high pressure games. It's extraordinary. Villa are not the type of team for a long time that have done that. Newcastle was the acid test, wasn't it? Nobody does well against Newcastle. It could have been 6-0. We battered them. Tottenham had to win, and we won. And 2-1. It could have been 3-4. Liverpool away, 7 wins in a row. Anfield, and they're going for the Champions League. You're thinking, we're probably not getting a result there, and they turn up and they get the result. It's just extraordinary. And then Brighton today, again, the pressure's on. Get that result. What did you think of the game itself today?
We played well. I think Brighton are good. I think they've been a little bit overhyped in the last few weeks. They've become a little bit of the sort of media focus. And this is not to bash them at all. It's incredible what they've done and what they've achieved. But I thought we played well. It wasn't like the Newcastle game, where that was probably the best we played this season.
Ever.
I think. Off the top of my head.
Yeah.
That was really high level. This is more. Today was very, very competent. Plenty of moments where you thought, well, we look really dangerous. And I think we deserve to win. Brighton are good, but we had our offside trap that we stuck to. It is a little bit nerve-wracking when you're not really used to it, but we're all getting used to it now. it is endlessly sort of tiring, the offside rule with the way the play goes on. But you just have to accept that. That's just how the rules are now. But it was, how would I describe it? It was sort of workmanlike is not right. It wasn't sort of just routine either.
No, it wasn't.
It was a mixture of things, really. There were periods where the first 20 minutes we were great, and you thought, "Oh, this is fantastic. This is going in the direction of the Newcastle game." And then there was, a stretch where Brighton had a lot of the ball, and you thought, "Oh, they could potentially score or make this uncomfortable." But it didn't have that feeling of an absolute siege because Brighton really didn't need to win. That they absolutely tried to score. Don't get me wrong. They didn't give us the game. They didn't give us the game. There was no hint of them, just allowing us to win, to keep Tottenham out of Europe or anything like that. They genuinely were being competitive, but just naturally, when you've got nothing to play for, I think they eased off a bit. But probably not the most incisive analysis of the game. But I would say a job very well done. Lots of players doing a lot of really good stuff. It's a shame that Jacob Ramsey couldn't score that, because that would have, really rounded out his performance.
It was fantastic first half, brilliant. Wasn't it? It was really good.
He was brilliant. He's another one actually on that list of players who've been reinvigorated by Unai.
Yeah,
Jacob Ramsey was struggling a bit with Gerrard this year. He looked a little bit one-dimensional, but not at all today. He looked really, really good.
Couldn't handle him. They couldn't handle him first half.
Yeah, no way. It's just so that was my view of it. There wasn't the feeling of, oh my goodness, this could be turned around and we're going to concede an injury time we're going to concede an equaliser in injury time, and all the air in the balloon will very quickly dissipate. That it wasn't really like that at all. It was just, as you said earlier, those exact words. It was extremely well planned and very well executed by a whole team, really, a whole squad of players who believe in the coach and the manager and what they're trying to work on, and it really just seemed to love it. And I think that's the other bit, that you never know. Who are we to know what players really think, but you get the impression at least that almost everyone in that squad is loving it, and that really helps.
Do. Absolutely, and it's reflected in the results, isn't it? And the performances. And personally, I thought, so obviously at the game today, I was in London, watching it with the London Lions in Feed the Yak in Elephant and Castle. And I also met Rory and Emmett, both from County Clare. They're both fans of the podcast, so good to meet you. I'll just give them a shout out. But I thought if you were a neutral, I thought the game today was really high quality football. I think if you appreciate teams that are really comfortable on the ball and really want to, keep it on the deck and play properly, I thought it was a really good reflection of that. And I think first half, Jacob Ramsey was unplayable. I think the thing was that Villa had to start fast, like we did against Tottenham and like we did against Newcastle. And that's exactly what we did. Goal in the 8th minute. Douglas Luiz, player of the season. Holding on to it, passes it to Ramsey. And Ramsey, the intelligence of him to just wait. Now, pushes that ball back, and there's Douglas Luiz to score. And then the second goal as well. Again, John McGinn as that second striker, it might be the role for him. It might be, because winning the ball off Alexis McAllister like you did, and I noticed this with Brighton. I've watched a few of their games recently, and something I do notice about Brighton is if they do lose that ball, they can look a bit chaotic defensively. And there were one or two occasions today I thought that happened again. And that the second goal was that. It was like Villa won the ball and suddenly Brighton were all like 6s and 7s, And fantastic pass from Bailey into Ramsey. And then Ramsey touches it on, and Ollie Watkins, it's poetic really, considering all the goals he's got. I think he put the full stop on the season, really. But then I think also that Brighton, I think it was the first time I think I've seen a team probably affect our high line quite well at Villa Park in a long time. I think they could have probably got a couple themselves, to be honest, in the first half. And Undav's first touch for the goal was fantastic off his head, heading it back and scoring. And I think probably you could question Mings about where he was, but it's hard. I don't want to say too much about Mings, because Mings has been like a colossus this season. He's been fantastic. It was just a really good goal. But I think Evan Ferguson probably thinks he should score more. And then also, Emi Martinez, the save off Undav that would have made it 2-2.
Yeah.
That leg stretching out, that left leg, it was exactly the same as what he did for Argentina in the World Cup final against Kole Muani. It was when it counted, he makes the big saves. And then second half, something else I'd noticed as well. I think Villa could have made it 3 or 4-1 in the second half. You know, Ramsey missed that chance.
Yeah.
Ollie Watkins just missed that ball from Ramsey.
Yeah.
And Brighton didn't really have a chance.
No.
Which is, you know, considering the pressure's on for Villa, and Brighton were going for it. Brighton really turned up today. They weren't on the beach. And I just didn't think they created a chance.
Yeah, my brother was saying, I think they had 3 shots or something in the second half. It wasn't a siege, like you said. No. They were better I think the game in general was better in the first half. If you were, you know, the cliched neutral watching, the first half was very entertaining. The second half lost its way a bit, but it was still an excellent game. And I think, you know, pretty evenly matched teams. As it happens, we actually won home and away against Brighton.
I know, yes, yeah.
But as we did with Tottenham, and I was looking at this earlier, like that's very un-Villa to do that sort of thing. We only got doubled by one team. That was Arsenal. We didn't. Everyone else we at least took 1 point from, and the teams around us we were actually able to take a lot of points from. And I think that's when we were talking about how we were able to close the gap. Well, because that's, you know, when you're taking 6 points from the teams around you, that's a big difference. But that's a bit of an aside. There's just really, I don't think there's anything else to add. It was just, it was a really good way to wrap up the season. The atmosphere at the end was brilliant. You can just see how really everyone is so excited by everything. The ground stayed full for for the players to come back out with their families and everything. Barely anyone left. The ground absolutely buzzing for half an hour after the game.
Really, half an hour, was it?
Yeah, it was completely
brilliant.
full. You know what I mean? 90% of the people stayed in the ground to watch the players come out. Amazing reception. Just brilliant. It will now be interesting to see what happens. I think we've spoken privately that it feels like maybe there's some things going to change in the behind the scenes a little bit. What that means, I don't know. Whether it was telling or not. So at the end of the game, the owners came onto the pitch and did a half lap. But Christian Perzo didn't. I don't know whether this, you know, the newly appointed
Chris Heck.
I never remember his name. The guy they've got from the US.
Chris Heck.
Heck, that's it. Yeah. Heck. Whether that means anything for Perzo, who knows? But there's no point in trying to read too much into these things. Perzo might just not have fancied walking around on the pitch. You don't know. But I think it will be interesting to see how that develops, and it'll be super interesting to see what sort of signings we make over the summer, and what we do with some of these young players. You alluded to that as well. You know, we've sent players out. They've done really well on loan, and be really interested to see what we do with them.